difficult moment for Podcast Addict, and yet they are spending weeks talking to bots on Twitter. I mean, literally, they're talking to the Google Play support on Twitter, and it's just a bot responding saying, "Has your question been resolved?" And they're like, "No, please, for the love of God, get me back in."
Yeah, we know that pain. Google is terrible. When things go wrong, it's like impossible. We pay for Google Apps for our email addresses, and our support email box, this was like 6 months ago, support email box just got locked. They just like, no, looks something suspicious going on. We're locking it. So we have thousands of customers who are trying to email us and, questions or help or whatever they want to talk to us. We can't get the emails. It's insane and it's frustrating. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, the answer for us is we're going to find another email provider. You can't just go find another Google Play to distribute your app on. And you can't just port your app from an Android app to iOS. Like that's like, a massive amount of work. And I get that developers who want to specialize in one platform. It's just unfortunate. The same thing does happen on the Apple side. There are Apple iOS developers who have had the same stories about their apps getting rejected and constantly or pulled from the store for certain reasons. It's part of what you sign up for when that's the business that you're going to go into. I don't think it's a good part of it. I don't think Google's doing it intentionally, but they've got, hundreds of thousands of apps in their store and they've got to build some rules and some logic. And sometimes that logic fails. And it does look bad, especially the same week that they launch a competing app. So if you're an Android user and you haven't checked out Podcast Addict, please go try to find them and download them. And let's try to help recover from being out the Google Play Store last week. Let's bump those numbers. Tell your friends, Podcast Addict. Good luck, guys.
All right. So last week was the Outlier Podcast Festival. These are a lot of festivals that used to be done in person and now are being done online. And one of the people who was asked to speak was Travis. So, like we normally do when one of us gives a talk, we kind of wanted to run through a little bit about what Travis talked about. So Travis, do you want to give us a little bit of an idea of what your show or what your talk was about and maybe give us some of the high points?
Yeah, for sure. So it was fun, actually. So I enjoyed it. It was one of those things that like at the last minute, we were given the opportunity to do this. And I was pumped about it because I love doing these kind of things. And so my talk was 10-ish, because I ended up talking about more than 10, tools to really level up your podcast. And the reason I really enjoy doing it is because I experiment with all kinds of tools all the time, just trying to figure out how do we make our Buzzsprout shows better? How do we teach tools and do tutorials and stuff on our YouTube channel? And so I was able to go back through and think, okay, what are the 10-ish tools that I would recommend to somebody if they were like, okay, I have a little bit of money to invest in either growing my audience, growing the production value of my podcast, or even branching into some monetization strategies. What would you recommend? And so that was kind of the framing for this talk. Was these are pro level tools that are kind of beyond the entry level or the beginner stage. Once you've really committed to your podcast and you're ready to level it up, what should you do? And so I divided it into a couple different sections. The first section was tools specifically for helping the audio quality or the production value of your podcast episodes. And so one of them, the first one that I got to mention, was Hindenburg. Hindenburg Journalist Pro is the audio editing software that Kevin initially got me hooked on, and now I can't go back. I can't go back to a world before Hindenburg because I just love the software so much. And essentially what it is it's all the pro level features that you would get in Logic Pro X, Adobe Audition, Reaper, which are like music studio quality audio editing platforms. But unless you're mixing like a Kanye West album, you don't need 90% of the features that are in that software. So Hindenburg says, okay, we're going to take all those awesome features that podcasters need, and we're going to put it in this really intuitive interface so you can make great podcast episodes, even if you're not an audio engineer. So that's why Hindenburg Journalist Pro is so great. I've also found myself saving a lot of time editing episodes, so my editing flow has sped up just because of the way that the interface works and how intuitive it is. I really appreciate the attention to detail there. And then you couple that with the publish feature, which allows you to push your final episode straight from Hindenburg into Buzzsprout, and you can even run it through Magic Mastering, which is our newest feature we just rolled out. That's all one motion now. So instead of it taking 30-ish minutes to do the mastering and using a third-party app like Alphonic and uploading it and all that kind of stuff, it's 2 to 3 hours a week or a month of my time that I get back now just from using Hindenburg. So that was one tool that I got to talk about. Another one that I talked about was Squadcast, which is the long-distance remote podcast recording software that we really like, that we recommend. We're not using it for this episode because we're using StreamYard to do the live stream. But when it's just the three of us and we're doing our episode, that's our app of choice. We love Squadcast, love what they're doing over there. And then as far as growth strategies, some of the tools I talked about were not necessarily the tools that you would think of. So one of them was Overcast ads. So a lot of people, when they think, oh, I'm going to start running ads to promote my podcast, to grow my audience, they think about Facebook, they think about Google. But the problem with those kind of platforms is you're trying to shift someone's behavior like 180 degrees. So on Facebook, it's like, hey, I'm catching up with my nieces and nephews at their birthday party. Oh, there's that funny, stand-up comic that's now everywhere. Oh, and here's an ad telling me to go listen to 45 minutes of a podcast conversation. Like, it's just really hard to get people to shift into that frame of mind. And so with Overcast, you're able to promote your podcast directly to people that are listening to a podcast. So it's like in the act of listening to their favorite podcast, your podcast shows up as something else that they can check out. And so we've had a lot of success whenever we use Overcast ads to promote our own podcasts, just paying between $1 and $3 per subscriber. And so it's really cool that you're able to track that and see your podcast grow. So if you have some money to spend on ads, we think Overcast is probably the best way to do that. And then as far as, just marketing your show and continuing to put your best foot forward, so when you do promote your show, people stick around, we talked about the importance of making a good first impression, that when somebody shows up to your podcast, if you have lackluster podcast artwork, then that's going to tell them that their podcast episode is probably going to sound as good as their artwork looks. And so if you have some money to really plus up your artwork, that's a fantastic investment to grow your audience long term. And the service that we really like is 99 Designs because it's tailored for people that aren't graphic designers and don't necessarily know what they want the artwork to be at the end. So those are the two things that I really like about it, because the way that sites like Fiverr or Upwork or some of these other sites where you connect with a graphic designer to do work for you is you basically kind of already need to know what you want. You need to find a designer that can do that work at a high level. And then there's a lot of back and forth. And there's no guarantee at the end that you're going to be happy with what you get. So there's a lot of risk on you shelling out money to hopefully get something that you like. But with 99 Designs, the way that they do it is they really shift the focus more towards the designers coming up with their concepts. And then you're choosing between 40, 50, 60 different designs. And so we've done it twice for our own podcast. We did it with How to Start a Podcast. We recently used 99 Designs for podcasting Q&A for that new artwork. And we're really happy with both of those. And the investment that we made was on par with what you would give to a professional graphic designer anyways. And so it was nice having all these different options to choose from and be able to iterate on. So we really like 99 Designs if you're looking to really step up your podcast. And then the newest monetization platform that we've started encouraging people to check out and see if it's a good fit for them is Podcorn. The reason that we like Podcorn is not because they're necessarily doing anything that makes, host-read ads crazy lucrative, but they make it really easy to connect with kind of the mid to lower tier sponsors, right? And so typically when you're trying to do a sponsor or negotiate with an ad network, you have to have a lot of downloads. You need to be connected to a podcast network that's negotiating hundreds of thousands of downloads to get access to these sponsors. And if you don't have that, just say that you have 50,000 downloads an episode and you're trying to reach out to these sponsors. Well, who do you talk to? Who is actually making the decision to spend money on podcast ads? So Podcorn just kind of takes all of that and really simplifies it. So brands and companies will say, hey, we have this product. We're trying to promote it on podcasts of all sizes. If you think you're a good fit, send us a proposal. And so you're able to directly apply, and you're able to really be creative about how you incorporate it as well. So you can say, I'm going to do a pre-roll ad where I talk about it for 30 seconds at the beginning of the episode. I'm going to review your product and spend 30 minutes talking about it. Or I'm going to interview your co-founder and have them on as a guest. And then at the end, encourage people to go check it out. So there's a lot of different ways, too, that you can negotiate your own value as the content creator to potentially get a more lucrative sponsorship deal. And the cut that Podcorn takes is actually relatively small compared to what you would see with these matchmaking services, which typically range between 30 and 50%. I believe Podcorn is 10% or less. So if that is something that you want to push into, doing host-read ads and trying to find sponsors, then that's a platform that we have our eye on that we think has some upside.
So one of the questions we got over on YouTube was, where's the episode of the top 10 things to grow your podcast? Where is this, where is this talk living, Travis, and how do we get access to it?
So we're recording this on Wednesday, May 20th at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Wednesday, May 20th. That video, that talk will go live on our YouTube channel. So you'll be able to watch it there. In addition to that, if you want to go and watch some of the other Outlier talks, because there were a ton of really great sessions, you can do a pay what you can sign up to get access to the entire vault of all the recordings. And so I think for as little as $5, you can get access to, some really great people, some really fantastic experts in the podcasting space, sharing their thoughts and how to really grow your podcast. But if you just want to see my talk, my little 28-minute spiel, it'll be on our Buzzsprout YouTube channel later today.
All right.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Travis. That's we love all of these festivals and all of these things that people are putting together. We're not able to hang out in person, but there's a lot of cool podcasting festivals. There's some more coming up in the next few weeks. So if that's something you're interested in, keep an eye out. And, I think we're ready to wrap this episode.
We are indeed. So if you're listening to this and you have not yet joined the Buzzsprout podcast community on Facebook, you are missing out because we just have a fantastic group over there. And we're always sharing tips and things that we're learning and doing Facebook Lives like this. And so if you are looking to connect with other podcasters, if you are looking for a community that can help you and partner with you as you grow your podcast audience, that is a fantastic group to be a part of. And if you haven't yet gone over to Podchaser and left us a glowing 5-star review telling us about how we're your favorite podcast, you can do that simply by clicking the link in the show notes. And we reply to every single one of them, which is also a really cool part of Podchaser. But that is it for the recorded portion of the podcast. If you want to join the Q&A, then in 2 weeks, you'll just have to be aware that we will be doing these live. And so check Facebook, check YouTube to jump into the Q&A. And for all of you guys that are live right now, after we wrap the episode, we will jump into your questions. But for everybody else, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
All right. So this week, or last week, there was the Outlier Podcast Festival. A lot of these festivals have gone online that they used to do things in Perpin.
We can just hit restart on that.
Let's redo that whole segment.
All right.